Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Making Multifamily Money podcast. So I like to mix it up sometimes and bring on some subscribers and fans. So actually, it was fortunate that Alan joined the school community that I created recently. It's a very intimate group right now, if I'm being honest. But the pros is that you can really get to know people, and it's more personalized versus joining a huge group where nobody knows anybody. But happy to bring on Alan. Actually found out that he's been subscribed for about 2 years. So I've only had this channel for about 2.5 years. So very, very early, maybe before even 1,000 subscribers. So happy to have you on, Alan. How are you?
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm doing good. Doing well. Hello, everyone.
Yeah. So to start off, just tell us about a little bit about yourself, your job situation, kind of your current investment goals, and kind of what do you want to do in terms of your investments.
Yeah, so it might be a little bit non-linear, but I'm currently a nurse here at New York City. So I do live with my little brother. I do bring in about, at this point, about 150K per year, safely to say. And then I'm just trying to get into my first real estate property. You know, if we want to go over my finances real quickly, just to understand
Yeah, just give like a
maybe
quick
where I'm
high
coming. Yeah,
level. Do you
yeah. So
rent? Do
just
you own? Kind of what's your situation for context?
So yes, so I do. I'm fortunate enough to um, rent stabilized apartment. Definitely not a safe neighborhood. I do live in the Bronx, and that's just a trade off. I live in a one bedroom apartment for my whole life. I've never had doors to my own room. I joke about it often, but it affords me the ability to take care of my family. Who my parents are divorced and they live separate, and so that's just the cost that I've been okay with. And so I rent stabilized monthly is about $1,000.
Oh
I share
wow.
with my brother, but I pay for that. I think yearly increase is around like 3.25%. So it's a fixed income. It's a fixed expense that I could track. Roth IRA, individual, like brokerage account, a Bitcoin, groceries, haircut. Just general expenses. I'd say I net. I expend about 4K to 4.5K. That's also helping my family, which are like non-negotiables for me. But my take-home pay within a month after taxes is about 6K, I would say. So I still have 34 to 25% savings rate if I wanted to fully put into like real estate, which is what I'm hoping for. And this is disregarding like me maxing out my retirement account.
Yeah. So like what's really impressive about your journey is that you're making good money, right? 150K is no small amount, and but you're still haven't lifestyle inflated. You clearly could live in a nicer place. You probably could afford a two-bedroom. You could probably get a nicer car if you want to, but I guess it's New York. You don't need cars,
Yeah.
for better for worse. But you basically controlled your basic expense, which is $1,000 is pretty affordable. I was expecting you to say like closer to 3,000 when I first heard New York.
Yeah. And it will be so hard for the math to ever pan out, if not
Yeah.
that.
So basically, you basically control your basic expense, which is housing, and it's you and your brother. So it's actually housing too. For me, I was fortunate where I didn't have to support my family, but I do know a lot of people who become pharmacists, doctors, nurses. You end up having to give money to your parents depending on their situation. So that was kind of fortunate for me that I think my parents were independent, so I could focus on myself. But that's not always the case, right? As you're describing here, Alan. But you still, like you said, maybe you could have gotten $3,000 apartment, nicer in a better area, not as rough, but you wouldn't have that margin to allocate money towards your parents and still maintain a 25% savings rate, which is better than most people, if I'm being honest. So that key is very, um, wise of you. Like, how'd you kind of develop that money management mindset? Was it just taught to you? Was it just the way you were brought up? How'd you develop that mindset?
I mean, look, I think, I'm not here to say like, my family is poor. A lot of families struggle, whether it's financially, emotionally. That's not a cop out. Everyone deals with their own baggage and their own adversities, however they need to. But I think it was more just survival. I had to really take care of, my mom and my parents have definitely had a very rocky relationship all since I was young. So I think the urgency was always there, uh, and I had it late. So like I didn't know anything about, my parents graduated from like middle school, nothing more. Probably made like 40,000 combined growing up. So I learned about tax advantage accounts, stocks when I was like 26. So this is not. I mean, I would say I'm late when you compare against like other like big finance channels and like what they're preaching. Start young and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I just consumed a lot. Just consumed, and I still don't know nada, nothing. But
Yeah.
I think I'm a lot better than where I started. And so
Yeah, and to hit this point, like for nursing, pharmacy, physicians, we get a lot of education. We have a lot of student debt. I'm not sure if you had debt, but like they don't teach you anything about personal
no,
finance in school. And I remember me, I graduated with $250,000 of student debt out of pharmacy school, and I was making $120,000, but I knew zero about finances.
yeah,
And
yeah,
we're kind
for
of the
sure.
same age, upper or mid 30s
Mhm.
to lower. And YouTube wasn't as big back then. Like I remember in my high school, YouTube wasn't really a thing. It was just a like place to watch people dance or like do
Yeah,
music videos. It wasn't like what it is today where you could like educate yourself
for
about
sure,
real estate, about personal finance. So it was a completely
for
different
sure.
environment. So I honestly, I started at 27 in terms
Mhm.
of like all I knew was 401k, IRA, and that's just basics, right? I just
Yeah,
knew like just
exactly.
max it out and then that's it. And pay off debt. That was literally the two things I knew. And it was when I was like, around 27, 28 was when I really started reading and educating more
Hmm.
with that. So, so let's kind of fast forward to, I guess, real estate. So what's kind of your first goal? Is it to kind of buy a place for you to live? Is it kind of to buy a rental property? Like, what's kind of your goal right now?
So yeah, I'm just thinking long term about the cadence of eventually my parents are going to need assistance. That's generally why I got into healthcare. It's not for the glam, but for the money. Just having the advocacy to care for them when I know that at some point I will need to be their caretaker, and knowing that they don't have they don't have trust funds, they don't have any investment funds. And so time has been a very big variable, and so I can't work a W-2 my whole life. If anything, I will need to pan it back at some point, part time even. So just trying to scatter out a little bit and diverse my assets. Hopefully, Envision like that will allow me to take care of like the big stakeholders in my life. And so yeah, I don't see anything else as of right now in terms of like leveraging safely my money into an asset which I don't expect to hold for like 1 to 2 years and flip. I'm not that type of person. I don't think I even have the guts nor the mindset or experience to do that. So I think I really resonated with your channel for the past like 2 years. I think I'm a big consumer of bigger pockets. I'm a big consumer of all these other blogs, all these. But sometimes you just might need someone who conveys and articulates a very specific thing you might have heard 10 times in a way that's it could resonate with you very well, which you did. And so, yeah, I think for me, the biggest mindset wasn't necessarily where do I get the funds? Before I became a nurse, I've only been a nurse 2.5 years. Before that, I graduated. I almost flunked out of college, actually. And it was in a degree that I made no use of. It was in educational studies because I was just basically trying to not flunk out of college. So I was making minimum wage up to like $45,000 for the first, up until like 25, 26 years, 25, 26 years old. So I'm fairly new to being a nurse.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's that's insane. Like I said, it was basically necessity to survive, right?
Necessity,
So in a weird way, I get it. First generation. I assume first generation
first gen.
Asian American,
Yeah,
and then basically, your parents came, like my parents came here from Vietnam and laid a
exactly.
foundation for us to do better than them,
Yeah,
right? That's the goal. But you're the older, I think, sibling.
yeah,
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 so it's kind of more weight
yeah,
on your shoulders to be the
yeah.
leader, to be the provider for your younger brother, as you mentioned earlier. So you're kind of forced to grow up faster than you are. So I completely get that, but it kind of those traits and mindsets is what leads to very successful like real estate investors. So one thing I want to hit on that you said was you're in this for the long haul, right? And I remember even before you hopped on, you're like, if I buy a piece of real estate, I'm not thinking of just buying it for 1 to 2 years and flipping it. I'm thinking of holding this long term. So it's an asset that will compound over time and appreciate in market value over time. Hopefully your rents go up over time. You have fixed rate debt, and hopefully the debt is lower than inflation. So if, let's say your interest rate was 5%, let's just call it one day. But if inflation is 7%, you're eroding
Yeah.
that loan, and you have tenants paying down your property long term. And then eventually, 30 years from now, when we're like in our 60s, it's hopefully paid off. And now it's like basically funding your lifestyle and then also helping you, giving you money to take care of your family, feed your kids if that's in the equation. So that's why we all do it, right? But what I like is that you're very realistic in terms of your expectations, because Bigger Pockets, I listen to Bigger Pockets a lot
Yeah.
as well. And I listened a lot during like COVID specifically, and all the titles were just like, I went from 0 to 1,000 units in
I
1 year.
know.
I
I
went
know.
from like being a waiter, minimum
Yeah.
wage, to like making $10,000 per month net. And I just kept on hearing those stories, and like it made my expectations so unrealistic. Like I felt like, no lie, a gun was pointed in my head, and someone was just like, Steven, you got to get like 100 units immediately, because I saw a waiter own 100 units. I'm a pharmacist. I make more money. I'm technically more educated too. I
Yeah.
actually would do it too. So
Yeah.
it was this weird like thing, and it set my expectations so unrealistic until eventually I did hit close to 100 units, and I realized that, oh my god, this is not what I wanted. It's actually too stressful. I'm losing money, and that's when I decided to sell something at a loss, and then scale back my portfolio. But that's what I didn't like about the content. And then I started creating content, actually, ironically, when I was at my rock bottom. I'm not sure if people know that, but I started creating as a form of my own therapy and self-reflection, because I was so like burnt out slash
Yeah.
depressed, and I had no one to talk to, because it's very unrelatable to be like, hey, Alan, let's say I'm at work with you. Hey, Alan, yeah, I'm struggling with my 90
No,
units of
for
real
sure.
estate. And you're
For
just gonna
sure.
be like, screw you. I'm struggling here to like, make ends meet.
For sure.
So like, it's very lonely, very unrelatable. So I was just like, I'll just create content. Worst case, it's just my diary to my future self, where my kids can see where I'm at. So, you do have a lot of the traits that you picked up, and you still are like relatively young, like and like for you, it didn't seem like you really care to retire early. That was my problem. I was stung by that fire bug. Like I wanted to retire by 35, which is what I am now, because I was kind of sick of my W-2. But for you, like you're basically using your W-2 as a way to feel basically your investments and take care of yourself today.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, no, trust me. I also wanted to fire. I mean, who doesn't? But yeah, there needs to be some level of realism with where I'm at, and yeah, I mean, the expectations that I've had since like graduation of even high school, I haven't not met any of my benchmarks, nowhere near close, and there's just no need at this point for fixation on those things. Like they don't propel me forward, and I could be salty and stuck in the wounds for as much as it can be, but it doesn't move the needle. And so I think, and I guess this might be the only possible advice, if it is any advice for anyone that's maybe listening, is just for people that are like me, who might be very stubborn, very stubborn, where even we understand the urgency that, you know, life might need with stakeholders. If we take care of kids or, parents, there's people depending on us. And even then, even in the face of those things, I'm still stubborn and I'm lazy, and I think the quicker that you can look at yourself with, a healthy level of disgust or a healthy level of like distaste for who you say that you are to these people, and the reality that you don't align with the things or the narrative that you tell yourself that you are, I think the quicker you can put yourself into action so that you can align yourself with the false narrative that you tell yourself all the time, or just to meet sort of the urgency that other people need from you or even from yourself. I'm
No,
just tired of, yeah,
I love that. I love that mindset. Because basically you're saying get rid of the ego,
yeah,
and then that's when you can
yeah,
have full growth. And
yeah,
we have the advantage where we're guys, and guys, our prefrontal cortex does not develop until we're in our 30s,
yeah,
right?
yeah. We're
So
dumb, we're dumb, we're
we
dumb.
sound smart right now.
Yeah, we're
Disclosure, I'm
dumb.
35, you're I think 32 or 33.
Yeah,
So like
yeah,
our prefrontal cortex developed, but
yeah,
yes, in my 20s, I
Sheesh.
was not thinking this way,
For
right?
sure.
In
For
your
sure.
20s, you're just on conquering mode. You just want to conquer. You want to hit these benchmarks, which are arbitrary. Like it might have been self-imposed, it might have been imposed by your family, right? But they're arbitrary. Once you hit your 30s, you're like, oh, actually, why did I do that? Why did I self-impose that? So it's just that self-reflection and self-awareness, and then also removing the ego at the same time
For sure.
to do that. So no, really wise. And like I said, I'm getting excited because you're basically pointing up, exuding all the traits to be a successful real estate investor. That's why I think healthcare workers are actually unfairly advantaged to doing real estate, because if you can handle working in a hospital, real estate seems easy. It's not life or death, relatively speaking. And then the hospital is way more complicated. I mean, real estate, if you look at it at a very simple view, it's literally a box that's clean and someone lives there and hopefully they pay you rent. That's really what it is. And for the most part, people don't die unless there's a fire. But it's very simple. That's why I tell people, I'm like, if I can survive in an ER like setting, then real estate's easy. I mean, worst case, you just throw money at the problem and then your problem is fixed. I mean, it sucks, but like you can solve most things of money
Yeah.
in real estate.
Yeah.
Are able to hold on long enough and delay gratification, you can build a nice empire, right? And that's what I'm trying to do, and you're trying
No,
to
I
do.
mean, and I think that's why I've been following you for so long. Is just like bigger pockets just show these 40-minute clips of like it's very great case studies of these people, and you yourself are an end study of one, which we've been following. But you do it in a very succinct manner, and you always give your like framework first. And framework alone cannot really provide much, but you give framework, and then your framework leads you to X, Y, and Z, which for me in my head, that bridges like my knowledge gaps way easier, and you do it in a very succinct manner. So, I mean, you've been very, very influential in like me progressing and like just understanding these things a bit better. I've been consuming these contents for like 5 years, and to make that first move and like run these, you know, these numbers on paper, there's still numbers on papers for me, and I'm sure like for many other people who's never had a house or doesn't know anyone that has ever bought a house. Numbers are numbers at the end of the day, and so your case studies, um, with with a lot of, you know, I think is very genuine. You don't come off sleazy. That has made leaps and bounds for my ability to just go gung ho. So I'm, you know, for the listeners, I am trying to buy by the end of this year actually, and so 3 months ago I was still running artificial numbers in my head. Not that it's not helpful, but at some point after 5 years, you can only run numbers for so long, and there's just no growth in that comfort zone. So
Yeah, I kind of call it like mental masturbation. That's
yeah,
the
yeah,
more intense version, but it's analysis
no, I agree.
paralysis, the more politically correct answer.
I
But I
agree.
know a lot of people where they just analyze and analyze deals. Like I
Yeah,
remember I started with this guy. We both started, we're newbies. So I was in your position, let's just call it back in when I was 27. And I was networking with a guy. He worked a great job in tech in the Bay Area. And we were just talking every single like 2 weeks or every month. And I remember we would like analyze deals together. And then, fast forward today, like I own like 50 units and he still hasn't bought his first deal. And we literally start at the same time, same W-2 for the most part. And then he just didn't take action, but I took action.
yeah,
Right. And like I said, you can run these numbers. Like when,
yeah,
when you bring a deal to a lender, they run the numbers based, they
mhm,
kind of trust you, but at the end of the day,
yeah,
they just put numbers in there. The numbers, it never really hits in reality. The numbers never really hit. It's usually
for
probably
sure,
worse than what you expect.
for sure,
Right.
for
If I'm
sure.
being honest,
Yeah,
like my first
absolutely.
apartment, I underwrote it at a 10% cash on cash return, which is good. But the moment I took over my apartment complex, I had 6 people leave. So what happened to my cash on cash return at that point? It's gone.
Zero. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So, and you don't know, no one tells you that stuff.
for sure,
That's why I felt like I had to say it. But then,
mhm,
and it does happen. It makes
for sure.
sense, right? New landlord in town. I'm going to milk it, not pay you. And then I know I'm going to get kicked out, but I got a month free rent. And then I move on to my next place. They're playing the game to survive. I get it. I don't blame them. But no, going in, you can underwrite for something. When you
Mhm,
take over the asset, it
yep,
can be like completely people move out, a bunch of repair requests because the prior owner didn't do anything as they were selling it. So it's like it looks good on a spreadsheet and you can
For sure.
tweak the numbers as long as you want, but the
Yeah.
reality is you don't know till you own it, but you have to mitigate for the worst case scenario. And what is
For
that?
sure.
It's having reserves. I hate to say it. It's having a W-2 income or business income or both
Mhm.
so that you can cover these hits, right? Like I'm pretty trans. My most recent video, I calculated my cash flow. I lost $4,000 the past 2 months on my 54 unit portfolio, and at my peak, I was making K per month. So how can I float my 4K per month? I have a W-2 job still, and I have reserves. So that's how you play the game. So it's really about owning a real estate portfolio, delaying gratification as long as possible, and then hopefully one day it's like mostly paid off.
For
And
sure.
then now you have this income producing asset where people think you're a genius, but you didn't do anything special besides just buy and hold for a
Mhm.
long period of time and sustain.
For sure.
And that's how you do it. So like that's kind of the key. It sounds easy to say, but actually in the weeds when it happens, it's
Yeah.
harder. That's where mindset is important, and that's where community is important. So so
I
so
agree.
yeah, let's actually go into like okay, what type of deals are you looking at? Let's go there.
So I had general benchmarks that Bigger Pockets talks about, just general textbook benchmarks. And so I was coming in just saying, okay, cash on cash, people say 8% a year is okay. Maybe aim for 10 to 12. I don't even know that. I'm just trying to get to the worst numbers, right? But I just said 8. Why not? Population growth, I've heard 1% annually is a pretty good number. Job growth of 1 to 3% annually is a pretty good number. Yet again, these are just numbers to me. I don't know, but at least I have some benchmarks. And so I was also looking at like these secondary markets. I don't have the funds to even look into primary markets like Los Angeles, New York City, the big metros. I don't have that. And so I was trying to hone in on like these secondary markets population of like 1 to 5 mil is what they say. So like Minneapolis, Nashville, I guess Dallas, if that counts anymore, like Indianapolis. And so the past 2 years, I narrowed it down to Indianapolis and Huntsville, actually. And so when I did come across your channel, at some point you did bring up Huntsville. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe someone else has vetted this. And, I've told myself many times, there will be many cities where it could all work out. And I don't need to know all these cities. People are always asking, which is the best city to do this or that? And I was one of them. And at least it gave me like somewhere to start, but I didn't want to lose sleep over, is this the perfect? There's no perfect anything. The more you look into these things. And so I just said, let me just stick to 2. So I just stuck to Huntsville and Indianapolis. And then the more you started talking about Huntsville and just northern Alabama, other podcasts also talked about it. I read some news articles as well. So I said, okay, fine. There's a repeat of general themes here. Let me take a bit, closer look. And so I just stuck with, Huntsville. And so I am, from what I know of, I am trying to look into single family homes. I know 4 bed, 3 baths, 4 bed, 2 baths do a bit better than the smaller bed counts and bath counts. I also know multifamily tris and fourplexes also do pretty okay in Huntsville. I was looking at multi-units in Indianapolis as well, which is doing comps between Huntsville and Indianapolis. But I think Huntsville has a better appreciation profile than Indianapolis. And I'm not too worried about cash flow right now. So I think the appreciation upside might be a bit more helpful to me in scaling. And so when I was looking through Huntsville, and please correct me if I'm wrong at any point, I was looking more so like my philosophy that I think works for me is I would pay a bit extra to be in A/B neighborhood than to be so fixated on price to be in a C/D neighborhood. So I was looking at like Madison / like Limestone County, good school districts. I know they have like strong aerospace, tech growth. I think the expected Space Command headquarter move is going to be happening. I think they announced it like recently in September of
Yes.
this year. I think Huntsville. I think at least from BLS, 2 to 3% job growth. So that fits. 1.33% population growth is what I've seen. That fits. So far everything's been fitting. I don't need a home run. at this point. I don't care about a home run anymore. I think I've been burned more times in the past by, right? And I'm sure a lot of people, as they wait for opportunities and as they, like, when they start off their investing journey, they want the greatest home run scenarios, whether it's stocks, whether it's this. But the recurring theme is, I don't get, there's not many home run deals. And if anything, you get burned way more waiting on the sidelines. And so I'm not saying jump in blindsided. I'm not saying go in blindsided, throwing, in a bull market, just throwing whatever you want. 2022, I threw money at like these SPACs. I didn't know what I was investing into, but I think that's the difference. Is just at least kind of know what you're getting yourself into. I don't know Huntsville probably anywhere remotely close as you or people who invest there. I'm still very, very scared. I have many, many doubts. But like I said, I think the reality of not making a move is scarier than the reality of me possibly messing up at this point, which is,
Ooh,
yeah,
I love that statement because I actually never articulated it, but that's how I kind of thought too. Because I just thought my worst case scenario, my first house, if this goes up, if this blows up in my face, I just can go back home and live at home. I had that privilege, fortunately, just living back at home in my original house I grew up in. And I just would find another job and start back at zero again. I was already at zero at the time when I first started. So it's just kind of like you're assessing your upside versus your downside. And like you said, your downside, it's actually worse off by taking an action. Because, if you go out there, you strike a deal, let's say it doesn't work out, well, we're still young. We can recover. We got lesson school hard knocks slap us in the face. But as long as you learn from it and then pivot to your next action, that's all you can do, right? It's an expensive MBA is what I
yeah,
call it. And I can tell you've been watching my channel because like some of the stuff you said like really resonated in the sense of like just having very realistic expectations of like real estate. Like, my first deals, I literally just went on Redfin and I offered asking price. That's all I did. I didn't even know it was a good price. I just offered them asking price. And, fast forward 5 years later, they all appreciated by 500,000 each.
yeah,
And was I genius?
exactly.
Not really. Was I a little bit lucky? Probably. But how did I get the deal? How did I build the net worth? I just took action and I said, well, worst case, I just will rent all the rooms out because I'm living there. And if that doesn't work, I just can move back home and then rent out the whole house. And then if I'm negative $500 a month or whatever, it's okay. I still work my W-2. So I always kind of saw that like weird, like I would see this is my worst case scenario. If I'm okay with that, then basically I would move forward.
I agree.
And like the way you articulate yourself, you're very scrappy. And I kind of have that trait too. Might be immigrant, first generation Asian American thing, but just very scrappy. So you'll make it work, whatever it takes to make it work. Whether it's having to pick up an extra shift if you had to cover your negative cash flow, or that's to maybe you have to sell at a loss and just take a hit. You know, so it's very smart. And I'll be honest, you did a lot more research in Huntsville than me. Like when I bought in Huntsville, I just literally knew that wait, I can buy a new construction for 250, which was insanely cheap to me because all the homes I was buying in the Bay Area were 800,000 to a million. And on top of that, it rents for $2,000. I was just like, wait a second, that's like the 1% rule almost, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I was just like, it's new construction so that there's no repair issues. There's no roof, no plumbing, no HVAC, no electrical. New construction has warranties. So if anything breaks in the first year, I get repairs. There's 5-year warranties, 10-year warranties. So it covers my major capex. The only thing I have to worry about is the property manager good? And can she rent this out? And that's all I literally thought. Like I didn't, and I've heard about Huntsville too. Like I think for the past 10, 15 years, it's been the hot market, but it hasn't really exploded yet, if I'm being honest. But maybe with Space Command, maybe with affordability becoming an issue, maybe it will start to pick up because you can get a house for 250. Okay. If you're renting, it's $2,000. Great school districts, as you alluded to, right? Madison, Athens, Limestone, like all the schools are good. You don't have to pay for private school. And it's a lot of space. There's a lot of development going on there. So that's kind of what made me hesitant to buy a lot, because why would you buy my house? If I need to sell, you just can buy a new house for the same price or cheaper. And but I just believe in it. Like within 10 to 15 years, would it double in value? I think my answer is leaning towards yes, just because it has all the right metrics to be an A class market, and it is an A class market. And so that's what really appealed to me about it, and that's why I have, well, if you follow my channel, I just bought two, and I'm looking to buy more depending on how this goes. It
Right.
just depends on my cash out refinance and my loan. So it's kind of funny how you came to Huntsville even before maybe me. You kind of thought about it, and but I like how you just said just pick a market and then commit to it, and that's your unfair advantage, right? So for me, I had a great property manager who was my realtor, introduced me to deals, and I bought one deal, and I literally bought that in 2021,
Mhm.
and I waited 4 years, 4.5
Yeah,
years before I bought my second, third deal because I was skeptical of the market.
for sure.
I've never been to Huntsville. To this day, I've never been to Huntsville.
Google
Yeah.
images.
Yeah, Google. I don't even know if I bought a house. They could have scammed me. I could have been a Ponzi scheme, right? I don't know.
True. You're right.
Right? How do I know what I bought? It could be fake everything. So, I hope Lennar doesn't lie. It's a big builder, but like, who knows? It could be a legit Ponzi scheme, and I bought nothing. I just have a shack when I go there
Yeah. Yeah.
in a made up address. But like, I didn't know. But then I just bought. I just say, let me just see how it goes. And unfortunately, the first one I bought, the rents went down every year a little bit from 2,100 to 2,000 to 1,900. But I'm still cash flowing. It appreciated okay. Like I bought for 260. It's like 330 ish now. Not California, where I was appreciating 100K per year at one point. But it's a hybrid market, right? It's a little bit of cash flow, a little bit of appreciation versus, California, New York, all appreciation, no
Yeah.
cash flow to negative cash flow. So, once again, like I started off investing in my backyard, but you're already ready to jump out of state to an area you've never been in. So like, and that takes a certain level of balls, and you're okay with just a base hit. And I think that's what you want to buy, like a good area at a reasonable price. And I think that's what new construction is, if I'm being honest. It's very reasonable and it's in a great area. Like who would say no to a new house, like as a tenant? So that's how you're mitigating your risk if people can't read between the lines,
Yes.
right?
And I think, and I think what really made me just your fresh look on what a beginner's first move can be in terms of, hey, all we most beginners are, yes, we want cash flow, yes, we want potential upside, but I think what we're scared about and so fixated on is risk mitigation, right? And so like, what are we comfortable with? Like, what am I scared of? I'm scared of anything, which is why I have not done anything in a very long time. But I think what resonated so loudly with your story of Huntsville was, I don't know, I have trust issues. I'm sure if you're gonna trust anyone with this amount of money, even to do a car transaction, dealing with those dealers was probably the most, yeah, that was horrible. And so to do something of 10 times the scale with that much more money, you know, money that my family might need and depend on, that there's a very emotional aspect to that. And so, you know, how can I remove that in the best way possible and make the deal make sense? I've never even thought about, you know, buying a brand new build, knowing that knowing that they do have, these end of the year incentives, which creates this, this buffer and installation when you run the numbers. And then on top of that, I didn't even know they can buy your interest rate down, you know. And then when you redo, like I said, I am not, there's, Excel sheet, like, warriors who's very good at all those things. There's very good, like, mathematicians. I am none of those. I just consume until something like makes sense. And so I hope a lot of people could resonate with, you know, maybe our beginnings, but I'm not doing anything fancy. If anything, what's been really helpful is there's a free trial for everybody. Not, not me, but Perplexity AI, kind of like ChatGPT, is giving a free year as long as you just link your PayPal account. So I've been using that, and I've just been running like these drawdown scenarios. Before, it used to be a lot of manual work, which I would second guess my own math. But yeah, I just created like drawdown scenarios where at the end of the day, can I just afford to take the hit? And I just told myself, as long as I'm hitting net, net break even, then I think I'll be okay, right? That's the worst case scenario. And so when I ran the numbers, right, because you could feel a lot of fear, but then what does that fear really translate to in terms of like, let's say numbers? Like, can it be grounded in something? And so, you want me to share the numbers real quick? It's just like
Yeah,
super.
go for it. Yeah, go for it.
I put scenario one where let's say property price of a 4 bed, 3 bath around Huntsville, generally new build, 300,000. And I think you helped me come up with these numbers, so it was very, very helpful for even vetting that. So I really appreciate it. I could only really afford at this point 25% down, like 75K, which is literally all that I kind of have, plus like 15K in reserves for if shit hits the fan. Not even for the property. I'm just talking about like in life. So yes, I might be overextending myself, but I think I think I can deal with that. And like you said, I think we're scrappy enough to know that, we have pretty stable jobs enough to fall back on. Monthly rents, like you said, $1 per square foot. So let's say 2,100 for 21 square foot house. I took a very conservative interest rate. I just put 6.5%. The average, fixed for 30 years, including monthly expenses, PITI. It could cash flow. What it gave me was 2,580. Net would be like a 3.44% cash on cash return, which is better than break even. And this is worst case scenario where like I'm just hitting all, like they don't give me nothing. They don't give me no interest rate buy down. They're not giving me any quarterly sales. This is worst case scenario technically for me, I think. And even then, I'm kind of positive. Even if it's like a few $100s just for reserves, I don't even care at this point. Like for me, this is better than the other maths that I have tried to comp out in like Indianapolis or like the non new build ones. And then if I even do like conservative, like, oh, maybe if they bought my interest rate down to like 5.5%, which I think you also said is a very real possibility. And let's say 5% discount for like end of the year holiday, like the end of their fiscal quarter. And I've been told it could go up to 10 to 15. And I've even been told they could buy your interest rate down to like 4.99%, 4.75%. If I'm just doing just conservative like numbers here, cash on cash will be 8.4%. And then I have a monthly net flow cash flow of like 526, which for me, I could stomach all that, right? And like you said, worst case scenario, if I buy at the end of the year, it's gonna be hard to move tenants in. If no one moves in there for like 6 months, even for a year, God forbid, I could stomach this. Like now that I have it somewhat on like numbers, my feelings now align with the numbers. It's still scary, but it's not as scary and it's not as blown up or dramatic as I thought. Because feelings could be feeling, just not grounded in, like we need to ground it in something, I guess. So this I can stomach. And so that's why I'm like, you know what, I'm all for it. I have the call with the real estate agent tomorrow. And so yeah, I mean, I think I'm ready.
Did you end up using my same agent and property
I
manager?
did, because I did look at two other ones from like Bigger Pockets and then one on Google. It was just very neutral. They ended up just sending me just like a list. They
Yeah,
didn't
it's a
really
web.
ask me much for like what there wasn't a lot of engagement. So I was thinking, even if the person that you had sent me, granted, you vetted them and I really appreciate that. But let's say worst case scenario, they're just like the others and they might not really fit my personality. At least they made the deal work for you. And I could always end up finding another real estate agent. And correct me if I'm wrong, the buyers never need to pay the real estate agent. It's the sellers that end up paying or they. So I feel like I'm not committed to this to one person. But like I said, I think for me, trust is a very big thing. And to have someone like you that I do look up to give me their own personal like reference, I think that I couldn't think of a better like scenario for me to start.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your numbers too, and I do love that because, like you said, like for me, I talk to Lennar directly because, like, no, I hate. I mean, you follow my channel. I'm not a big fan of realtors and brokers. in general, because I like to just go straight to the source. I hate
Yeah,
like talking to a
I
middleman
respect
who
that.
talks to a middleman who talks to the owner. I'm like, let's
Yeah,
just talk
I
directly
respect that.
and hash this out, right? That's how I bought my apartment, if you know,
Yeah,
right? I literally just talk.
that's
I
awesome.
don't want to talk
That's
to the
awesome.
middleman. Just talk direct. But
That's freaking awesome.
yeah, so my realtor slash property manager, her strength, if I'm being honest, it's more so in the property management
Hmm.
because that's the most key, right?
Yeah.
If you want to hold this asset long term, property managers can make or break your deal. But
Hmm.
in terms of like analyzing the deal and giving the numbers,
For
not as
sure.
strong. So I always have to probe her to like, hey, what are the rents? Like I have to direct her. So that's full disclosure. But then
For
yeah, I'll
sure.
give her a hard time then if she didn't treat you well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. 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 No. 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 No.
um, it's she's just more focused on like the relationship, which most realtors are, right? They're just more like trying to, and then I'm just like, just give me the number, give me. I literally told her like, or it was we were on a three-way call. It was me, her, and Lennar. Um, so if you're going through Lennar or buying in the same communities I'm buying in, it's the same guy. I forgot his name for some reason, but
It's okay. It's okay.
yeah, but like, is it John? Whatever it was. Basically, I'm just asking John, like, hey, dude, like, I'm unemotional about this. I'm not living in this property. I've never even been to Huntsville. If the numbers work for me, I'll buy a lot of these deals. Here's my number. It's well for me, I was paying cash, so I was like, that's 256 is my number. If you give me that number, I'll buy as many deals as I can because this is my strategy. I'm gonna be a repeat customer, right? And then like with Lennar, like you said, I only knew that if you do 25% down, which you intend to, they advertise, oh, we can offer a 5.5% interest rate, right? Or they might give you something where it's maybe 4.99 year one, and it's 5.25 year two, and then 5.5 year three, something creative like that. And then you fix that 5.5. But that's the incentive they're giving because they partner with lenders, and then they give their credits to basically pay down your loan. And then if you lock in a 5.5, you don't have to refinance because I mean, even if you're at a four, if your loan amount is like only 250K, or sorry, if it's around 250, it's not going to affect you as much. Like I ran some numbers, like on my house here, my loan is 850. I'm at a 7.5% interest rate. I pay $5,500 a month for my mortgage. The same loan at 3%, it saves me $2,000 a month. That's crazy,
That's
right?
substantial for sure. That's crazy.
Crazy. But you
Yeah.
take that same example for a loan size in Huntsville, Alabama of 250. The difference between a 6.5% and a 3% might be like $200.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the difference between maybe you making a 3% cash on cash return versus like an 8% cash on cash return. So like that's why I went to cheaper markets when interest rates are higher because interest rates do not matter as much when the loan
I see.
amount is
Yeah.
smaller. So that's why I don't like if you think about I just did a video about this,
True.
so it's fresh off my head. But it only matters more in like expensive markets like California and New York. Because like, that $2,000,
That's
oh
true.
my
That's true.
God, like that's make or
Yeah.
break.
That's true. No.
So with that mindset, you probably didn't realize that, but then that's
Yeah, I
that's
didn't know.
why
That's true.
I'm investing in Huntsville. Like the silver lining
Mm,
behind why I'm picking
I
Huntsville
see.
because I don't care if I'm at a 4% versus a 6.875, which is what I got,
You're right.
because it's only a difference of
The
$200,
overall. I see.
and that's
Yeah,
not
I
going to make.
never. That's very interesting. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. True.
Another way you're mitigating risk, Alan, is I mean, yeah, you're leveraging my property manager, um, and basically, I gave you my real numbers, like that. I literally those are my numbers because I
Hmm.
paid steadily.
Hmm.
Who's one of my partners to basically give me
Hmm.
that quote.
Yeah.
The property tax is public information. You just do math,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then I literally have it rented out at 2150 right now, for a 3-year lease. So my next property, I bought another one in the same community. I expect the same numbers roughly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give or take $50 here and there, depending if it's harder to rent out during the holidays.
Hmm.
But your only risk with these properties is like, yeah, if it takes you 3 months to like, I think that's at the worst case about 3 to 3 months to rent out a property. In that case, you're paying the mortgage, and then whatever, if you're making $200 a month, that's just being saved towards that vacancy whenever it comes. But like I said, you can take the hit. One thing that I want to mention too is in your example, like when you buy your first house, so you spent your whole life saving up, let's call it close to $100,000, right? You said you just been a nurse for 2 years making the bigger money, right? Like that's your whole nest egg. So I get why you're scared because like when
Yeah.
you send that wire, it's gonna make
Yeah.
your like heart sink a little bit. You're
Oh, I'm
like, oh
sure.
my God.
I'm
Yeah,
sure.
you're going to check that wire number like 10 times to make sure it's correct.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
then, once you send it out, you're going to feel
Yeah.
broke. Trust me, you're going to feel so broke like the first like 6 months that you buy your first house. You're not going to eat out as much as you used to. You may not do as much. You might start cooking at home more. You're just going to like really lower your expenses. But then once you start building up that reserve again, you feel more comfortable. But what
For
happens
sure.
after that? You go buy another property. So
Yeah.
it's like this constant like wheel of like you build up money and then you feel poor again because you just spent the money buying real estate. But then now you're accumulating assets. And then, but it's ironic because you're like, wait, why do I feel as broke as I used to feel?
Yeah.
But I own two properties now. Well, welcome to real estate, right? That's
Exactly. Yeah. 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 Exactly.
the name of
Yeah.
the game for the first 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just a matter, can you stomach that for that period of time?
Exactly.
And like you said, you looked at your worst case scenario and you're okay with your worst case scenario. And like an idea that I even thought of, which is crazy, is if push came to shove, I even considered moving into that property in Huntsville, Alabama. I'll just live there myself. It's cheaper than
Damn
paying
right.
rent. It's literally cheaper than paying rent in San Francisco. Like you can get a
Oh yeah.
room in San Francisco for like close to $2,000, or you can get a 4 bedroom, 2 bath, 2,100 square foot
Yeah.
with a big
No, you're right.
backyard,
You're right.
and you get a big house, right? Like you
No,
can
you're
go
right.
from your, 1 bedroom apartment, you pay maybe $600 more.
Yeah.
You can live
No,
in
I agree.
a brand new house and have the American
I agree.
dream. So no, I love that assessment of kind of the downside risk of that. So like very smart in terms of your approach. So yeah, it's really, you're doing it the right way, and it's very rare for people to have that like mindset going in.
Well,
Yours
I
is
hope people know that. I also hope people know that I've been thinking the same things over and over for like 5, 6 years. So, hopefully people could, really resonate with the fact that this is not, and I'm sure your situation when you first started, nowhere near textbook, nowhere near, and it still probably will not be near even going into a deal. Um, but yeah, I like how you always think about, what is your general philosophy in life? What are your goals in life? What can you stomach? What can you stomach in terms of the worst downside scenario? How can you mitigate those things? And then you give real life examples. So yeah, it's been very helpful for me to stomach and reorientate. Can I really do this? Can I really stomach this? And when you put in general numbers, these are not even crazy numbers, and you have AI to help you, everything seems way less daunting than it really is. Yeah. And I also think that's why the new build strategy really appealed to me. I don't think I could have stomached having to meet like general contractors to do a fixes on this and that, and understanding, is the foundation, does it need a fix, or at what cost is comparable a market rate. Those things for me to even think about on my first property when I'm already trying to deal with getting over the mental hurdles, and like sort of the Olympic gymnastics you have to go through to just get yourself to say like shut up to your worries. I couldn't have. It was not possible for me to really think about doing that, especially if it's across state lines also. So yeah, this is why it really resonated, and the numbers make sense, and yeah, it's great so
Yeah,
far. So let's
no, I love that approach. Like, once again, to reiterate, and for me, like you just saw my hockey stick growth was in COVID time, but then people don't realize that I started in 2013 making
yeah,
pharmacist salary. My first 4 years was just focused on paying off student debt. That's all I
yeah,
knew. From 2017 or 13 to 17, I just was paying off student debt and living in my mom's house,
yeah,
for lack of a better word.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
finally at 27, I was like, oh, I need to leave my mom's house if I want to date and have any dating life.
yeah,
So basically, I just saved up for my first house, and it just like snowballed from there. But then, like you said, as a beginner, I don't recommend like buying a renovation deal, right? Like you want to keep it as simple as possible. The point of the first deal is to get you excited to buy the second deal,
yeah, exactly,
and get you willing
exactly,
enough to sacrifice to make that first deal work
yeah,
long term. That's
yes,
the whole point of the first deal. It's like
exactly,
snowboarding. If you can go snowboarding the first time and you want to go back the second time, that's a win, despite
exactly,
you falling.
yeah,
So you want to make it as easy as possible, like almost like a layup, right? And then new construction, there's nothing really to risk. The only risk is if can you rent it out, and how long will it take to rent out, and maybe you might have a repair or two. whatever, right? But it's not going to be like my 20 unit apartment complex where last
Yeah.
month I had 3 plumbing issues and
Yeah.
it leaked from the top floor to the bottom unit. And then, I have all these costs now. And then imagine like, in between your shift as a nurse, you're calling your contractor like,
You know.
I have a plumbing issue, and then you don't
Yeah.
even know how much it costs to replace the flooring or to clean up the ceiling. Like you don't want to deal with that. So you just want like a nice, clean base hit. And new construction is that way. But the downside is, yeah, you can't recycle your capital,
Yep.
but it's okay. You just
It's okay.
save up the next
Yep.
down payment, right?
Yeah.
Then that's what people understand. Like that's what I did too. Like my first deal, like how'd you get your money? I just worked and saved money. That's
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
And then I bought a deal, and then I house hacked it and saved for the next 2 years to buy my second deal, and then did another 2 years saved for my next deal. And then eventually, once you build up equity, then you could cash out, refinance, pull
Yes, sir.
out all your money, and then now you have more money and you go buy more deals.
Yeah.
That's all I literally did.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy about it, but it starts with that first deal and it is super discouraging. But I like in investing, like going to the gym, like it's like to get six pack, it's not hard. It's like you literally just eat clean and then you move more than
Yeah.
you consume.
Yeah.
But no one has six pack. Most people are obese, right? It's simple, but it's not easy to do
Exactly.
consistently.
I agree with
And
that.
that's the thing that
Absolutely.
people don't get. If you do something very simple for a long period of time, it makes you seem extraordinary. But that's all I did. I just did one very simple thing over an extended period of time. But now you fast forward like 8 years in the future, it looks impressive. But if you look at it in the moment, it's so basic. So that's kind of the key thing like I want to hit on too. Is just like it's not as complicated as you think. And then people keep on telling me like, oh Steven, you can't do what you've done in 2025. And I'm just like, well, like watch me. I'm buying right now too. Like it doesn't matter what interest rates are. I'm buying. I mean, you're considering buying. You're starting in 2025, which most people consider to be the worst time. But you're okay just putting down 25%, getting a 5.5% interest rate, and then maybe break even for a few years, and maybe by year 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe you start to cash flow, maybe it starts to appreciate. That's really so. With that, I think you are going to get a deal. So I
Yeah.
guess of Lennar, the end of the year is end of November, so it's actually yeah. So end of November is their year end. So whatever active inventory you see, those are the deals that you're going to strike. And I just look on the website every single like day, if I'm being honest, to see what deals I want. But then
Yeah.
I know I'm still locking down stabilizing my two deals. But that's really what it is.
Yeah. I'm excited and very thankful. Very, very, very thankful for your channel and finally getting to meet. So I hope this has not been too long. I apologize. But yeah, is there
No,
anything
it's
you
great.
want to?
I was gonna say, yeah, I know we're approaching on time here. I'm happy to go a little bit longer, but any kind of questions for me before we kind of end here?
I mean, definitely, I could go. It's great to pick your brain. But just for respect for the podcast, just one quick question. When it comes to buying right is a very important part of the equation. But then in terms of, do you wrap your properties into like LLCs prior to full closure? And if so, I think where you end up putting your LLC might not be as convoluted. But I hear people like, I think the logistics of you live in California, correct?
Yes.
Like I know the logistics of having a LLC somewhere else, having the mail sent there is very convoluted and annoying. But then some people are like, put your LLC in Wyoming or like, tax free states. Like I just don't know. Of course I want to have it protected away from my personal name, but I just don't know too much about LLC wrapping and like where you thought would
Yeah, that's a great question. So just for context for the audience, I didn't do an LLC until after I bought like 5 properties in California because I didn't know any better. I was just living in the house myself, right? But then now what I'm doing is like I am typically buying my properties in Huntsville, Alabama, for example, under my LLC. But I'm using lenders where they're like non-conforming lenders. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like Convoy, Ameritrust, Lending One. Those are the ones I've been working with. And they basically allow you to just buy it under an LLC. But typically, if you go like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, which is your conventional loan,
Mhm.
they might charge you more, a higher interest rate if you were to close an LLC, for an example. So that's the only downside, right? But it's not going to be much. It might be the difference of like maybe 0.25.
Mhm.
And at the small loan amount, it's not really going to make or
Sure.
break your deal. So it's really up to you. Like I wouldn't say for the first deal, you don't have to get that complicated about it. Like for me, I do own a holding company in Wyoming, and then
Mhm.
that holding company does own my LLC, which then owns my properties in Huntsville, Alabama.
That's what I
Right.
did
But
too. Yeah, that's
I
good.
didn't do that until I was a multimillionaire, if I'm being honest, for context.
Cool, 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 cool.
Right. So I don't want people getting held up with
I agree.
that, because you can always, like, worst case, buy under your name. The only downside is it's going to show up in your credit report. But you're a W-2 employee, Alan, so it doesn't matter. You have good debt to income ratio. I assume your credit score is decent because, if you pay your credit card off, or if you have student loans, you pay it off. You have a car payment, you pay it off. Like, usually W-2 employees, they love us. But the loans I'm using, usually it's more for like business owners who they don't have W-2, and most traditional banks don't like them. So they're forced to use these non-qualifying lenders that are
Mm.
more investor friendly. Like, they don't require tax returns. They don't require um, every single lease that I
Yeah,
own,
yeah,
right? Like for me, I have
yeah,
54 units. I have to show 54 leases. That's a pain in the
yeah.
butt. And for what? To save, 0.2% on my interest rate? It doesn't matter for me. I'd rather just take the convenience. So, but like you said, you can try both options. I'm not sure if Lennar, if they allow you to close an LLC or not. If it doesn't make a difference, it's just something you'd ask them. If the answer is yes, it's nice. Like you obviously, like for me, I set up my LLC in California, but then it has
The
a
Wyoming
forward
holdings.
entity into like Oklahoma or like Alabama.
Mhm.
Even though my LLC owns properties only in Alabama, I still have to pay California Franchise Tax Board
I see.
$800 a month.
Yeah,
That's just the cost of doing business and living in California. I'm sure New York might have something similar, probably, if similar politics. Um, but yeah, I would say overall, like, don't overcomplicate it. Like, I would just get a quote for both. Like, hey, if I buy in my name, what's my interest rate? If versus I
okay.
buy my LLC, what's my interest rate? If you buy with your LLC using my lenders, I know you're probably going to be at around 6.875. But if Lennar forces you to use your name, you might
Mhm.
get 5.5 or less. So you just have to
Mhm. For sure.
risk versus benefit that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's, if it makes you feel better, most property managers have insurance, so like it is a safety net in that sense. And then you can get a personal or umbrella insurance policy on top of you to cover as well. It's that's more advanced stages.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not.
Because people get caught up on that. I'll be honest. A lot of people get caught. I'm like, dude, don't even worry about like calculus yet when you haven't even done like
I
algebra,
don't know
right?
1 + 1.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So no,
that's
that's
cool.
that's a great question. That's where people get held up. I'm like, dude, just make the deal work and make it, like you said, if you can fulfill the emotional part of you and stomach the worst case, like that's good enough to take action. And then at that point, you can always transfer it to your LLC, or maybe in the future you refinance it into an LLC and then you can remove it from your credit. Because I will admit, my downside right now is if you look at my credit score, you see all my loans, right?
I see.
My $4 million worth of loans on my credit, but
Yeah,
luckily I have a W-2 still, and luckily I do get income from my assets, so it kind of offsets it if you're looking at my debt to income ratio. That's what you're trying to calculate there. But anyways, Alan, no, thanks for coming
that's
on.
it.
Hopefully
Yeah,
you found value, and then I'm sure my
absolutely.
audience found value as well. I like to try to
Thank you
bring on
so much.
people, and people think it's weird to like, oh, I'm used to just watching you like on my bed, and now you're talking to me. And some people
Surreal.
like,
Very surreal.
yeah, some people
For real.
see me in real life too. Like one guy,
Yeah.
I was eating tacos somewhere in Orange County, and like he was like literally, he was like, "Oh, I saw you eating with your wife, but I didn't want to interrupt you."
Yeah,
One person saw me getting married. Like I was literally taking photos
that's
in San
crazy.
Francisco for my wedding, and like they're like, "Oh, I saw you." I was like, "Oh." So, but
Yeah,
yes, come say hi, put a comment. Hopefully, you found value. Let us know what questions you
absolutely.
have. Happy to answer it. And then, yeah, if you're been a long time subscriber, you want to go into my podcast, reach out to me. Right? You never know. Right? You never know to you ask. Like I said, Alan's been
Awesome.
watching for 2 years, and finally, look at that. Now we're talking. Now he's part of
Now
the
we're
school community.
talking.
Yeah, now he's part of the school community too. So yeah, check out the channel. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you want coaching, you want mentorship, you want to join the school community on a free trial, you want to send me an email, just click on the link tree. That's how you can connect with us. Like I said, right now it's an intimate group in the school community, and I'm hoping to bring a lot of value to
Come
it.
on in.
Yeah, come on in.
Come
Yes,
on in.
and then but otherwise, hope to see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.